from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
It is time for another Ask the Pediatrician episode. Thank you to all of you who sent us your questions. We've got some great topics to dive into today, and I've got the perfect guest to help break it all down.
Just know that every child is different. So some kids will, scream and cry even before any teeth break through because they're feeling things moving under the gums. And other kids, their teeth will pop out without you even knowing it. And so they happen to cry or open their mouths and, there's another tooth. So know that there is a range.
Welcome to Healthy Children, the podcast for parents from the American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. I'm a pediatrician and a mama figuring it out. This is a judgment-free space where all questions are good questions and the answers will hopefully be even better. Let's get started. It's Ask Your Questions Day, and we are so lucky to have Dr. Jennifer Shu back, who is the medical editor of Healthy Children. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks so much for having me on again, Edith.
Yeah, let's do this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So first question that came in says, my child is going back to school in a couple of weeks and is feeling nervous. How can I make the first day easier for them?
So I totally feel that for many kids going back to school, it can be nerve-wracking for many, many reasons. Just because it's the unknown. And, I think letting your child know that other people are in the same situation so they don't feel so alone can be helpful. If you can identify a classmate who will be at that same school, so they'll have a familiar face, maybe try to have a play date with that person beforehand, that can make a child feel more comfortable. And then sometimes a buddy system can help. So maybe a child in an older grade can kind of mentor your child as they get ready for school. And then some kids like to have lots of advance notice and preparation. So if you could visit the school, do an orientation, maybe walk them through what to expect for the first day, sometimes information can be very helpful.
Yeah, I love that. And I have to tell you, my little guy has been in the same building and daycare since he was like 5 months old. So we haven't really had that new and unknown situation, but I know that we will when he goes to kindergarten. And we already started, Jennifer, when we walk past the kindergarten that he's going to go to, I've already started to be like, that is the building. That's where you're going to come when you're old. And he's kind of looking forward to it. But of course, so many unknowns. Next question that came in. How do I know if my child is ready to start a sport?
Oh, that's a great question. Your child may be ready to start a sport if they express interest, such as if they see somebody doing that sport on TV or outside in a field and they say, oh, I want to do that, or maybe I could do that. That would be one way to tell that they're ready. You can ask maybe at their school or daycare if they seem to be participating in some kind of physical activity and seem interested. So there would be some familiarity there. So if they already know a little bit about, kicking a soccer ball or trying to hit a ball with a bat, then starting with something they're already familiar with could be good. And then you could always just introduce them to something new because they may pick it up. And so there are many sports camps that you do multiple sports and just see how they like a certain one. So I think it's important to have some diversity and not really focus on just one sport when you're young, and then just kind of explore it and see what they end up liking.
I love that. It's really about what they like, what they're interested in, and rolling with it, right? And I have to tell you, I'm a huge fan of sports. I didn't grow up as a sports person, but now that I see the benefits in kids, I'm like, oh, I'm into this. But always, of course, when they are ready and when they're sort of leading. Jennifer, I think this parent who wrote in has been through a very familiar pain to many of us, which is the pain of traveling. Their question is, my family is planning a big trip this summer and keeping young kids entertained on long flights isn't easy. Is it okay to use screen time as a tool to help during travel?
That's a great question. And of course, we always want to do things like screen time in moderation. So depending on the age of the child, you might want to do a little bit less than more. So an older teen, yes, they might be used to spending a few hours at a time on a screen, whereas a younger child, maybe only half an hour to an hour. So it really depends on how long the flight is, how old your child is. For younger children, especially under a few years of age, then anything that is kind of a real-time video tends to be better and more educational for kids. So, such as live action, a person talking to you, for example, that tends to be more relatable to a child than perhaps a cartoon or something that's more kind of a fantasy or imagination thing. So, something to think about there. But I believe everything in moderation and mix things up because kids have short attention spans. So maybe do a video for 15 minutes and then take a break and have a snack and break out a toy from your toy bag. Just try to give some variety there.
Yeah. I wonder when you were in this situation when your kids were very little, what did you bring, Jennifer? Because I'll tell you, I brought two things recently and they saved me. One was puzzles, little ones that are light and not like a big box, right? And Legos that actually we had to buy at the airport during a terrible flight delay, but that's a different story. But what did you bring? I'm just always curious to learn, what are people bringing?
Yeah, Legos and puzzles are great. You know what's really funny is the things that my kids were most interested in were the in-flight magazine, which they may or may not have anymore. So they looked at that.
I think they still have those. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like tape, like scotch tape kind of things where they could just rip a piece off and stick it on the magazine. Kind of scribbling kind of thing would be good. And sticky notes. They like to put sticky notes onto the back of the airplane. And I think something where the novelty hasn't worn off. So sometimes either, having a stash of toys and books that they're not used to, that can hold their attention longer. And like you said, if you buy Legos at the airport, maybe buy a toy plane or a stuffed animal or a book at the airport they haven't seen before, and that can hold their attention as well.
Yeah. And every little bit adds up. And next thing you know, you're there, right? That's what we're hoping for anyway. Jennifer, as you know, I live in New York City and it feels like e-bikes are everywhere these days. One of our listeners wrote in with a great question. Are e-bikes safe for kids?
Oh, that's a good question. Are we talking about safe for kids to drive on their own or safe for kids to be a passenger of? Because those are probably two different things.
I think to drive on their own.
Okay.
But also tell us about being a passenger.
Yeah. So, being a passenger, you still want to use the same safety considerations, such as a helmet, as you would for a non-e-bike. So I don't even know what you call it, like a manual bike, a human-powered bike. So, the same thing with helmets and whatever. As far as children driving e-bikes, I don't know that there is a recommended age for many motorized vehicles. The recommended age would be more like a driving age, like 16 and up. I mean, are you familiar with any recommendations or policies?
So I cheated because I was very curious about this because e-bikes are just so many places. I'm like, how fast do these things go? And when are kids supposed to do this? And I also have to say, kids in New York City are very precocious sometimes. Like it just feels like they're doing things that they shouldn't quite be doing yet. So what I found was that between the ages of 9 and 10, the official recommendation from the Consumer Product Safety Commission is that they don't operate anything that goes faster than 10 miles an hour, which is not that fast, right? I mean, I don't drive on a regular basis, but that feels like not very fast.
Right. Yeah. So that's a good rule of thumb. And also, I think kids need to be aware of certain rules. So I know in my community, unless you are below a certain age, you're not allowed to ride bikes of any type on a sidewalk. And that's something I didn't know. So you may want to look for, any kind of local laws, if there are bike lanes that they would need to use. And because you're going faster than usual, make sure you know how to yield the right of way to pedestrians and look for safety things.
Yeah, no, totally. All good rules of thumb and things that hopefully we've taught before our kids get behind the driving wheel. It's really a wheel before they start driving these things. Yeah. Jennifer, the next question that came in is about teething, which I have to tell you, I used to think was no big deal as a pediatrician until I became a mom. And now I'm like, oh gosh, it's actually kind of a big deal. So what are the best ways to help my baby's teething symptoms?
Excellent. So same thing. I didn't necessarily know how big of a deal it was before becoming a mom. And just know that every child is different. So some kids will, scream and cry even before any teeth break through because they're feeling things moving under the gums. And other kids, their teeth will pop out without you even knowing it. And so they happen to cry or open their mouths and, oh, there's another tooth. So know that there is a range. And for kids who do have discomfort, some acetaminophen or Tylenol can help with the pain. If they're over 6 months, ibuprofen, which would be Motrin or Advil, can also help with the pain. Sometimes rubbing the gums with a damp washcloth, massaging the gums can help. And then talk to your pediatrician about teething objects, teething rings, teething toys. Sometimes chilling those can help. Sometimes people will say, allow your kids to kind of gnaw on a hard piece of fruit, so something that's not going to break off and cause a choking hazard, but that sometimes the sweetness and the cold fruit flavor can actually help with the pain as well.
Can I tell you the most random thing William did when he was teething?
Yeah.
He opened the fridge, somehow reached his little hand into one of the drawers where we keep our veggies and grabbed a carrot and started just going at it. And I was like, oh my goodness, let me at least peel this thing for you. But it was so clear that he was actually getting some relief from this cold carrot. And I was like, perfect.
Yeah, what a smart kid. That's amazing. So that reminds me, you can also give them a toothbrush to chew on, and that cleans their teeth in the meantime. And then for the little babies, there are these little gum stimulators that sometimes help too. So little rubbery things with knobs on them that kids can use to kind of massage those gums so they feel a little bit better.
Love it. And then like everything else, that too shall pass. Now, the next question that came in, Jennifer, is a different age group altogether. The question says, should my preteen son get the HPV vaccine?
That is an excellent question. I strongly feel that anyone who is eligible to get the HPV vaccine should get it. And that means boys and girls. Starting at the age of 9 or older, and your pediatrician can talk to you about what's the best timing for your child. Just know that it is one of the vaccines that we have that can prevent cancer of different parts of the body. And if you ask people who have had abnormal pap smears or other issues where there was a concern about possible cancer, all of them tell me they wish they had had access to this vaccine when they were growing up. So I do think it's a very important and helpful vaccine to get, and your pediatrician can help advise you through all of this. And also know that if you start the HPV vaccine before age 15, you only need 2 doses in the series. But if you started after age 15, you would need 3.
Yeah. And I wonder, what is the conversation that you have with your patients, Jennifer? I have found recently that when I frame it as, if we do this sooner, the protection, the antibodies, the immunity that your child will develop is better than if you wait, parents are sort of on board. Like they'll say, okay, their immunity, the immunity that they create right now at this age is better than if we wait. That kind of makes sense to them, as opposed to leaving parents wondering about why we're offering a vaccine to prevent a sexually transmitted disease at age 9, right? So how do you talk to your families about that?
Well, one comparison is the hepatitis B vaccine that we can give as early as birth, okay? And when you give vaccines early, the body responds better. So younger kids' immunity will respond better to vaccines than an older person. So that's the first point I give. And then you always want to give the vaccine before a child is potentially exposed to whatever that virus or bacteria is. And so we want to give it well before any type of exposure can happen, such as from sexual activity, as you mentioned.
Yeah. See, I knew you were the perfect person for this episode. I think that was it. We did it. Thank you to everyone who sent us their questions. And thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer Shu, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again, Edith.
And thank you at home for joining us. If you like the Healthy Children podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app and help us spread the word. Follow Healthy Children on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Healthy Children AAP. And be sure to visit healthychildren.org, the parenting website of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Healthy Children is a production of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Our creative team includes
Laura Alessio,
Catherine Beard,
Garrett Brown,
Zach Christman,
Ann Johnsos,
Kathy Jewell,
Claire Keating,
Doug Nagel,
Jackie Ortega,
Susan Stevens-Martin,
Mary Claire Walsh,
Hannah Weston.
And our theme music was composed by Doug Nagel. We'll be back soon. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. Thanks for listening.